Check this out. In the summer of 2025, a fire was lit in the mountains of the Middle East that had been seen in over 2,000 years. No press was notified, no cameras were permitted, and when it was over, the people responsible released a statement saying that nothing of significance had occurred. Now, I'm not here to tell you what it means, I'm not here to tell you a conclusion. What I'm here to do is lay out what we actually know. The verified facts, the documented statements, and the questions that no one seems to be asking out loud. Because once you see all of it together, you might find yourself asking something that's hard to shake. What if this isn't preparation? What if this is the final countdown? Let's look at the evidence. To understand what happened in those mountains, we need to go back about 3,000 years, to a passage in the book of Numbers, chapter 19. God gives a command so unusual, so seemingly paradoxical, that Jewish tradition places in a category called shock, a divine decree that surpasses human understanding. Find a red heifer, a cow, completely red, not a single black hair, not a single white hair. Never yoked, never worked, perfectly unblemished. Slaughter it outside the camp, burn it completely, collect the ashes, mix them with water. And those ashes, those waters of purification, would be the only substance capable of cleansing a priest from defilement of death, allowing him to serve in the holy temple. Here's where it gets interesting. The same ashes that purified the impure made those who would minister at them ritually impure themselves. Purification through paradox. The rabbis have wrestled with it for millennia. Now, in all of recorded Jewish history, only 9 red heifers have ever been sacrificed. 9 in thousands of years. And according to ancient Jewish tradition, the 10th will be sacrificed by the Messiah himself. So when 5 red heifers were flown from a ranch in Texas to Israel in September of 2022, the prophetic community took notice. But here's what most people don't know about what happened next. For nearly 3 years, those 5 heifers were raised in Shiloh, monitored, protected, away from public view. And then, in July 2025, a short video surfaced online. A few seconds long, filmed at what appeared to be a hiding location in the mountains of Samaria. In the footage, a red heifer, a Kohen, a Jewish priest in a ceremonial garments, and the fire. The reaction was immediate. Forums lit up. Prophecy channels exploded. It happened. The red heifer has been sacrificed. And then the Temple Institute released a statement, followed shortly by the Sanhedrin. Both said the same thing. The heifer used was not qualified. The ceremony did not meet the biblical requirements. What viewers saw was a simulation, a practice exercise. Nothing prophetically significant had taken place. Now, I want to be careful here, because I'm not suggesting anyone is lying. But I do want to point out some things in that statement that are worth just sitting with. The Temple Institute themselves acknowledged, and this is a direct quote from their own release, That they, and I'm paraphrasing here, cannot always be fully transparent about the details of their preparations. They also confirmed that the ashes from the ceremony were collected and stored. Here's the question I'd like you to consider. If the ceremony was invalid, if the ashes have no ritual significance, why store them at all? That's not an accusation. That's just a question. And it's the kind of question that tends to lead somewhere. Now here is where the story takes a turn that almost no one in the mainstream conversation has picked up on. In August 2025, the Temple Institute released a separate clarification. One that, in my view, is far more significant than the red heifer controversy itself. They were asked directly, is the red heifer a prerequisite for building the third temple? And their answer was no. Their exact words, and I want to read this carefully. Construction of the temple can take place even in the absence of the ashes of the red heifer, when is there no other option. This actually took place during the building of the second temple. Think about what that means. For years, prophecy watchers have pointed to the red heifer as the one remaining obstacle, the missing piece, the thing that couldn't be faked, couldn't be rushed. And the Temple Institute just quietly removed it from the equation. The Temple Institute has, over the past 4 decades, reconstructed the sacred vessels for the temple service. The menorah, the altar of incense, the ceremonial laver, the priestly garments, including the golden breastplate. They have trained a new generation of Levitical priests in ancient temple ceremonies not practiced for 2,000 years. And they have developed a detailed architectural blueprint for the structure itself. There are also reports from multiple sources of record numbers of Jewish visitors to the Temple Mount in 2025, more than any year since modern records began. And Israeli government ministers have been photographed praying openly on the Temple Mount, something that just few years ago would have been unthinkable. Now ask yourself, what does a movement look like in its final stages of preparation? Here's where I want to slow down, because whatever you believe about prophecy, whether you're a person of faith, a skeptic, or simply curious, what the ancient texts describe is worth examining on its own terms. The prophet Daniel in chapter 9 describes a sequence of events in the final period of history. Among them, a figure who enters in a holy temple and puts an end to a sacrifice and offering. The Apostle Paul, writing to the Thessalonians, describes a man who, quote, sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. In Matthew chapter 24, Jesus points to Daniel's vision directly, referring to what he calls the abomination of desolation, and says, let the reader understand. Now, whether these texts are a prophecy, history, or allegory, it's not something I'm going to decide for you. But here's the observation I'd like to leave with you. For any of what's described to be literally possible, there has to be a temple. And right now, on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, there is no temple. There is the Dome of the Rock. There is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. There is geopolitical tension that has lasted for decades. And yet, the preparations continue. The priests are trained. The vessels are made. The garments are sewn. And the organization doing all of this has just told the world that construction does need to wait. I'm not drawing a conclusion. I'm describing what I see. You will draw your own. If you've been following this channel, you've seen us look at the 8th king, at the Daniel's clock, at the Israel and Iran flashpoints. And each time, the same pattern emerges. Events that were once theoretical become logistical. Events that were once distant become immediate. What was written as a prophecy starts to look like a blueprint. And I'm not saying we're at the end. I don't know that. Neither does anyone else. What I'm saying is this: the people building toward this moment are not waiting for permission. They are not waiting for a sign. They are not even apparently waiting for the red heifer. They are moving, quietly, methodically, with intention. And the question that keeps coming back to me, the one I can't find a satisfaction answer to, is this: if they are preparing for something, what exactly are they expecting to walk through those doors? I don't have the answer. Maybe no one does. But I think the fact that the question exists, the fact that these preparations are documented, these statements are on record, these ceremonies are being filmed and released, and then quietly explained away, I think that alone is worth paying attention to. The Watchman does not tell you what you think. The Watchman points to what's on the horizon and asks you to look. If what you saw here made you stop and think, share with someone who should be watching. And if you haven't seen where this connects to the Daniel's final timeline, that video is right here. Because once you see how these pieces fit together, the picture becomes very hard to unsee. See you on the next video. Bye bye.